Okay, I want to be talking about Delta Force, the formation of Delta Force, the foundation of Delta Force. Charles Beckwith was the one that founded Delta Force November the 19th, 1977, 44 years ago. The first Special Operations uh, Forces Detachment Delta, 1st SFOD-D, referred to variously as Delta Force Combat Operations Group, CAG, Army Compartmented Elements, ACE, the unit, or within Joint Special Forces Command. Task Force Green is a special operations force of the United States Army under operational control of JSOC. The unit's missions primary involves counterterrorism, hostage rescue, direct action, special reconnaissance, often against high-value targets. Delta Force and its Navy and Air Forces counterparts, Dev GRU and the 24th Special Tactics Squadron, are among the U.S. military's Tier 1 special mission units tasked with performing the most complex, covert, and dangerous missions directed by the National Command Authority. Now we're going to stop here for just a second. Of course, they are the equivalent of the Navy SEALs for the Army. Okay, getting back to here, Delta Force operators are selected primarily from the United States Army Special Operations Command Elite, 75th Ranger Regiment, and Special Forces. Through members can be selected from other special operations units and conventional forces across the Army, and sometimes other military branches. So they probably get some people from the Navy SEALs. If you look over here on the right, this is the emblem right here. The Delta Force Airborne, 1st Special Forces Operations Detachment, Delta Airborne, USA SOC shoulder sleeve insignia worn by Delta Force operators, depicting the historic Fairbairn styles fighting knife inside the outline of an arrowhead. And you see right here, you can see the founded November 19, 1977, 44 years ago. United States Army Special Mission Unit, Special Operations Counterterrorism. You can see this right here. Classified, Joint Special Operations Command, U.S. Army Special Operations Command. Headquarters is at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Nickname the unit D-Boys. Operation Eagle Claw was one of their operations. Operation Urgent Fury, Operation Just Cause, Operation Acid Gambit, Persian Gulf War, Colombian Drug War, Somalia Civil War, Operation Restore Hope. Now the Somalian, and you've seen that in the Black Hawk Down movie. Watch that. That was a good movie. I like watching that. And these are the different operations they've been involved in right here. And you can scroll down here, and we're going to, of course, we're going to put a link to this here. Delta Force was created in 1977 after numerous well-publicized terrorist incidents led the U.S. government to develop a full-time counter-terrorism unit. Here's this picture of Charles Beckwith, Colonel Charles Beckwith, in 1980. Key military and government figures have already been briefed on this type of the unit in the early 1960s. Charles Beckwith, a Special Forces Green Berets officer and Vietnam War veteran, served as an exchange officer with the British 22nd Special Air Service Regiment during the Mahan emergency. Now you see the heads chopped off in this video. You see that right there? On his return, Beckwith presented a detailed report highlighting the U.S. Army's vulnerability in not having a SAS-type unit. U.S. Army Special Forces in that period focused on unconventional warfare, but Beckwith recognized the need for not only teachers but doers. He envisioned high, adaptable, and completely autonomous small teams with a broad array of special skills for direct action and counterterrorism missions. He briefed military and government figures who were resistant to creating a new unit outside of special forces or changing existing methods. Finally, in the mid 1970s, as the threat of terrorism grew, Pentagon and Army senior leaders appointed Beckwith to form the unit. Beckwith estimated that it would take 24 months to get his new unit mission ready. Beckwith's estimate came from a conversation he had with Brigadier John Watts while in England. In 1976, Watts had made it clear to Beckwith that it would take 18 months to build a squadron, but advised him to tell Army leaders that it would take 2 years and not to let anyone talk him out of this. To justify why it would take 2 years to build Delta, Beckwith and his staff drafted what they dubbed the Robert Redford Paper, which outlined its necessities and historic precedents for a 4-phase selected assessment process. And here's a picture right here. This is Delta Force bodyguards in civilian clothing providing close protection to General Norman Schwarzkopf during the Persian Gulf War. Okay, Delta Force was established on 19th November 1977 with Beckwith and Colonel Thomas Henry. In the meantime, Colonel Bob Blackloves mounted Montel of the 5th Special Forces Group created a unit to breach the short-term gap that existed until Delta was ready, dubbed Blue Light. The initial members of the unit were screened from volunteers and put through a specialized selection process in early 1978, involving a series of land navigation problems and mountainous terrain while carrying increasing weight. The purpose was to test candidates' endurance, stamina, willingness to endure, and mental resolve. The first training course lasted from April to September 1978. Delta Force was certified as a full mission capable in fall of 1979, right before the Iran hostage crisis. On 4th November 1979, 53 American diplomats and citizens were taken captive and held in the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, Iran. Delta Force was asked to plan and execute Operation Eagle Claw. The effort to recover the hostages from the embassy by force on the nights of the 24th and 25th April 1980, the operation was aborted due to helicopter failures. The review commission that examined the failure found 23 problems with the operation. Among them, unexpected weather encountered by the aircraft, command and control problems between the multi-service component commanders, a collision between a helicopter and a ground refueling tanker aircraft, and mechanical problems that reduced the number of available helicopters from 8 to 5, with fewer than the minimum desired, before the mission contingent could leave the trans-loading refueling site. After the failed operation, the U.S. government realized more challenges were needed. The 160 Special Operations Aviation Regiment Airborne, also known as the Night Stalkers, was created for special operations requiring air support. The Navy SEAL Team 6, an earlier incarnation of the current Naval Special Warfare Development Group, was created for maritime counter-terrorism operations. The Joint Special Operations Command was created for command and control of the military various counter-terrorism units. In 2010 article, Mark Amber reported that the Army Compartmented Elements ACE was a new cover name for the Delta Force. A binder subsequently wrote an e-book about JSOC in which he reported that the Army Compartmented Elements is a different unit from Delta. Organization structure. The unit is under the organization of the United States Army Special Forces Command, USASOC, but is controlled by the Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC. Command of the 1st SFOD-D is Colonel Billett's virtual Virtually all information about the unit is highly classified, and details about specific missions or operations generally are not available publicly. The unit is headquartered at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Delta Forces structure is similar to the British 22nd SAS Regiment, which inspired Delta's formation. And in Not a Good Day to Die, the untold story of Operation Anaconda, Army Times staff writer Sean Naylor describes Delta as having the time at the time in 2001 nearly 1,000 soldiers, of which about 250 to 300 are trained to conduct direct action and hostage rescue operations. The rest are combat support and service support personnel who are among the very best in their fields. Naylor further details Delta's forces structure in his book Relentless Strike, The Secret History of the Joint Special Operations Command. He describes new formations in Delta, primarily as the following operation squadrons. A Squadron is the assault. B Squadron is assault. C Squadron is assault. D Squadron is assault. E Squadron is aviation. G Squadron is Advanced Forces Operations, AFO, formerly known as Operations Support Troop, OST. Combat Support Squadron and a Signal Squadron. It says A, B, C, and D squadrons are Saber squadrons. Assault. C squadrons was activated in 1990, and D squadron in 2006. Combat Support Squadron was activated in 2005. E squadron was activated in 1989 and stationed separately in Fort Euless, Virginia, where it is known as the Aviation Technology Office. An earlier forerunner of the unit was known as Sea Spray. Within each squadron, there are 3 troops, 2 assault troops for direct action, and a reconnaissance and surveillance troop. Each squadron is commanded by a Lieutenant Colonel 0 to 5, and troops are led by majors. Each troop has 4 teams, each one led by a team leader, Master Sergeant, it's an E8, or Sergeant First Class, an E7, and as an assistant team leader who can also have the same rank. Each team can have as many as 12 or as few as 1 or 2 operators. Recruitment. Since the 1990s, the Army has posted recruitment notices for the first SFOD-D. The Army, however, has never released an official fact sheet for the elite force. The recruitment notices in Fort Bragg newspaper Paraglide refer to Delta Force by name and label it the U.S. Army Special Operations Unit, organized for the conduct of missions requiring rapid response with surgical application on a wide variety of unique special operations skills. The notice states that applicants must be male in the grade of E4 through E8, have at least 2.5 years of service remaining in their enlistment, be 21 years of age or older, and score a high enough on the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery to attend a briefing to be considered for mission. Candidates must be airborne qualified or volunteer for airborne training. Officer candidates need to be 03 to 04. All candidates must be eligible for a security clearance level of secret and have not been convicted by court-martial or have disciplinary action noted in their official military personnel file under the provisions of Article 15 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. On 29 June 2006, during the session of the Committee of Armed Forces, General Wayne Dowling testified before the U.S. House of Representatives that the Delta Force is probably 70% Rangers who have come out of either a Ranger Special Forces track or directly from the Ranger Regiment to Delta. Selection process. Selection is held twice a year, March to April and September to October at Camp Dawson, West Virginia, and last 4 weeks. Eric Haney's book, Inside Delta Force, describes the selection course and its interception in detail. Haney wrote that the selection course began with a standard test including push-ups, sit-ups, and a 2-mile, 3.2-kilometer run, and an inverted crawl, and a 110-yard, 330-foot, 100-meter swim fully dressed. The candidates are then put through a series of land navigation courses to include a 18-mile, 29-kilometer all-night land navigation course while carrying 40 pounds, 18 kilograms of rucksack. The rucksack's weight at the distance of the courses are increased, and the time standards to complete the task are shortened with every march. The physical testing ended with a 40-mile, 64-kilometer march with a 45-pound, 20 kilograms rucksack over rough terrain that had to be completed in an unknown amount of time. This is also colloquially known as the long walk. Haney wrote that the only senior officer and NCO in charge of selection are allowed to see the set time limits, but all assessment and selection tasks and conditions were set by Delta training cadre. The mental portion of the testing began with numerous psychological exams. The men then went through in front of a board of Delta instructors, a unit psychologist, and the Delta commander, who each asked the candidate a barrage of questions and then dissect every response and mannerism of the candidate to exhaust the candidates mentally. The unit commander then approaches the candidate and tells him if he has been selected. If an individual is selected for Delta, he undergoes an intense 6-month operation training course, OTC, to learn counterterrorism and counterintelligence techniques in which the individual maintains little contact with friends and family for the duration. Training includes firearm accuracy and various other weapons training. In an interview with former Delta operator Paul Howe, mentioned the high altitude attrition rate of Delta selection course. He said that out of the two classes, 120 applicants, each 12 to 14 completed the selection. The Central Intelligence Agency, Secretive Special Activities Center, and more specifically its Special Operations Groups, often work with and recruits former operators from Delta Force. Training. According to Eric Haney, the unit's operator training course is approximately 6 months long, while the course is constantly changing. The skills taught broadly to include the following: marksmanship. The trainees shoot without aiming at stationary targets at close range until they gain almost complete accuracy, then progress to moving targets. Once these shooting skills are perfected, trainees move to a shoot house and clear rooms of enemy targets. First one only, then 2 at a time, 3, and finally 4. When all can demonstrate sufficient skills, hostages are added to the mix. Demolitions and breaching. Trainees learn how to pick many different locks, including those on cars and safes. Advanced demolition and bomb making using common materials. Combined skills. The FBI, FAA, and other agencies were used to advise the training of this portion of the OTC. The new Delta operators use demolition and marksmanship at the shoot house and other training facilities to train for hostage and counterterrorism operations, with assault and sniper troops working together. They practice terrorist or hostage situations in buildings, aircraft, and other settings. All trainees learn how to set sniper positions around a building containing hostages. They learn the proper way to set up TOC and communicate in an organized manner. Although Delta has specialized sniper troops, all members go through this training. The students then go back to the shoot house, and the hostages are replaced with other students and Delta Force members. Live ammunition is known to have been used in these exercises to test the students and build trust between one another. Tradecraft. During the first OTCs and Delta creation, CIA personnel were used to teach this portion. Students learn different espionage-related skills such as dead drops, brief encounters, pickups, load and unload signals, danger and safe signals, surveillance and counter-surveillance, executive protection. During the first OTCs and creation of Delta, the U.S. State Department, Diplomatic Security Service, and the United States Secret Service advised Delta. The students take an advanced driving course to learn to use use the vehicle or many vehicles as defensive and offensive weapons. They learn techniques for VIP and diplomatic protections developed by the Secret Service and DSS. Culmination exercises. Final test requires the students to apply and dynamically adapt all their skills that they have learned. Delta Force trains with other foreign special operations units to improve tactics, increase relationship with them, including the Australian Special Air Service Regiment and the 2nd Commando Regiment, the British Special Air Service and the Special Boat Service, Canada's Joint Task Force 2, and Israel's Sarik Matel. Secrecy. The Department of Defense tightly controls information about Delta Force and usually refuses to comment publicly on the highly secretive unit and its activities unless the unit is part of a major operation or unit member has been killed. Delta operators are granted an enormous amount of flexibility and autonomy during military operations overseas. Civilian hairstyles and facial hair are allowed to enable the members to blend in and avoid recognition as military personnel. Now this right here is a picture. We're not going to click on that. The origin of the team operator in the American Special Force, American Special Operations come from the U.S. Army Special Forces, aka the Green Berets. The Army Special Forces was established in 1952, 10 years before the Navy SEALs, and 25 years before Delta. Every other modern U.S. Special Force operations unit in the Army, Navy, and Air Force, Marines was established after 1977. In Virtus, the Journal of Army Special Forces Operation History, Charles A. Briscoe stated that the Army Special Forces did not misappropriate the appellation unbeknownst to most members of the Army Special Forces ARSOF community, the moniker that was adopted by the Special Forces in the mid-1950s. He goes on to state that all qualified enlisted officers in the Special Forces had to voluntarily subscribe to the provisions of the Code of Special Forces Operator and pledge themselves to its tenets by witnessed signature. This predates every other special operations unit that currently uses the term and title operator. Inside the United States Special Forces Operation Committee, an operator is a Delta Force member who has completed selection and has graduated OTC operator training course. Operator was used by the Delta Force to distinguish between combat personnel and combat support support assigned to the unit. Other special operations forces use specific names for the job, such as Army Ranger and Air Force Pararescue Man. The Navy uses an acronym SEAL for both the special warfare teams and the individual members who are known as special operators. In 2006, the Navy created Special Warfare Operator SO as a rating specific to Navy Special Warfare enlisted personnel grades E4 to E9. See Navy Special Warfare ratings. Operator has become a colloquial term for almost all special operations forces in the U.S. military and worldwide. Operations and clandestine operations. Most operations assigned to Delta are classified, but some details have become public knowledge. For service during Operation Urgent Fury, Delta was awarded the Joint Meritorious Unit Award. The unit was awarded the Valorous Unit Award for extraordinary heroism during the Modelo prison hostage rescue mission and the capture of Manuel Noriega in December 1989. During Operation Just Cause in Panama, first SFOD-D operators from C Squadron were also involved in Operation Gothic Serpent in Somalia. During Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom, the first SFOD-D was awarded the Presidential Unit Citation for combat operations in Afghanistan. 4th October 2001 to 15 March 2002, in Iraq from 19 March 2003 to 13 December 2003. On 26 October 2019, Delta operators, accompanied by members of the 75th Ranger Regiment, conducted a raid on the compound of the Islamic state leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, leading to his death. Of course, Charles Beckwith, he's the founder of the Delta Force. I'm not going to go through this. He's got all kinds of citations. This guy's a war hero. You know. Right here just shows, I'm just going to read this real briefly. Although Beckwith has presented proposals through the 1960s for a superbly elite, highly autonomous direct action unit, the idea had sat on the shelf for a decade. Finally, in the mid-70s, as the threat of international terrorism became imminent, Beckwith was appointed to form his unit. During the time Beckwith was forming his unit, counterterrorism duties fell to the Special Forces community. The 5th Special Forces Group quickly formed the counterterrorism and the blue light to fill in. Unit Delta was fully operational. The 1st Special Forces Operations Detachment Delta was then established in 17th November 1977 by Beckwith and Colonel Thomas M. Henry as a counterterrorism unit based on the model of the British Special Air Service, but with a greater focus on hostage rescue in addition to covert operations and specialized reconnaissance. Colonel Beckwith led Delta Force's first mission, Operation Eagle Claw, the assault on the captured American embassy in Tehran, Iran, early in 1980. The mission was aborted due to a helicopter failure during a sandstorm and a subsequent crash, which led to several deaths. After the debacle in the desert, the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment was formed to provide transport for Delta Force and other Special Operations Unit. JSOC was also formed directly based on Beckwith's recommendations during the Senate investigation into the mission's failure. So there he is. That's Charles Beckwith. He's the founder of Delta Force. We're going to click on his picture here in a second. This was in 1980, and I've got the Delta Force book, and I don't know. I've also watched I've watched basically all the Delta Force movies with Chuck Norris. I've also watched the Delta Force Black Hawk Down movie, which is a good movie. And this is a picture of Charles Beckwith, the founder of the Delta Force.